everyone. So this is the Edge of Stone Sisters. This is episode number 5. This is Kathy, and I'm here with Sarah, as always. And we just decided we're totally not in the mood to check in. So we're not checking in this episode. Maybe next time, we don't know. But we want to launch right into our topic for today, which is manners. So Sarah, start us off about manners.
Yeah, so much about manners. Big topic. Let's first talk about the difference between manners and etiquette. And I'll start out by saying that manners and etiquette definitely sometimes intersect. Sometimes people use it interchangeably, and sometimes the content intersects, but sometimes they are very, very different. So let me say about my sense of manners, which I'm hoping will be the main focus of this podcast, is that manners, the intention of manners is to be considerate of other people. That's my sense. Being conscious of other people's needs and sometimes preferences, and
Yes,
including that in your actions and words and behavior. Now, etiquette, tell me what you think etiquette is.
Yeah, I think like etiquette is more of a prescribed thing, like a group of people agree to certain ways of doing things. Not necessarily the way you behave toward other people, but just the way you like set the table, like could be proper etiquette. So there is an overlap, but it is different.
Yeah, so it's more societal norms, and sometimes it seems like it's tied to upper class, middle class. I mean, it seems like that kind of thing, doesn't it?
Certain it's kinds also of etiquette, like what's acceptable to like your larger society, and what's acceptable in your more immediate, in your home life, in your social group. So and people should know that usually when we decide on a topic, you and I do have some conversation about it usually before we get to our podcast conversation. And it's usually just, a little back and forth. We want this to be very spontaneous and genuine, but we do usually talk a little bit. So this morning, when I was thinking about doing this, I asked my husband if married people need to have manners with each other. And I know this is something when we talked earlier, you said that was so important. Is that right? I remember that right?
Yes, I feel I have notes here saying I think it's so important. Not etiquette. Now, I still want to say more about etiquette, but not the etiquette part, but the manners part. The manners part.
Yes. So I said to John, do you think married people need to have good manners with each other? And he said right away, no, not at all. So I thought,
wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Did he say more?
I don't know. I was a little shocked. So,
can you pull him in the room? Okay, wait a second, Kat. Can you pull him in the room?
You really want me to do that? I don't know if he'll do it. Should I ask him?
I don't know, but no, I just so much want to follow up of this. But let me get back to something's weighing on me about the etiquette. So what's weighing on me is when I said the thing, how it can be attached to the upper middle class and all that. That's part of why I think it's like, oh my God, that stuff I don't even care about so much. I just want to be people who can be considerate and kind and gracious and caring with each other. So that's the part.
So then you think
somebody
like if
bothers
we all
me about where's the salad fork, I don't care.
So you think if we all have good manners in general, then the etiquette part is less important?
Yes, except for there's some places that intersects, which hopefully that will come back, and maybe we're going to need to, maybe it won't come up easily in this. Because I didn't overly analyze it, again, wanting to be spontaneous. But I am so blown away. But let me ask you about John, your husband. Yeah. So if you do something extra, like buy him a wonderful gift or cook him a special meal, or I just trying to think of something, will he show gratitude?
Of course he will. It's not like he thinks it's okay or we should have bad manners or lack manners with each other. So the question was, is it important in a married couple? And that, I think that's what he was saying, is that it shouldn't be seen as as important to people who I guess are more comfortable, more intimate with each other than with, when you're meeting people, when you're getting together with friends, whatever. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, that's so interesting to me. I think I'm thinking more about the manners that involve like showing appreciation. And I think it's so important to show appreciation to Don.
Yeah.
And also the manners of like being like, I'm not good about this, but if he's working at the computer, not interrupting him. And I really try to be conscious of that.
Right.
So that can be described as manners. So I'm talking about something very specific. And like I said, I was not talking about etiquette because etiquette can intersect or it can be stuffy.
Yes.
And I don't want to be stuffy. I'm not stuffy with my husband.
Right.
Just so you know.
So here's an instance that might be more about etiquette than manners. But tell me what you think. Mm-hmm. So my friend Meryl, and by the way, everyone, this whole topic is Meryl's idea.
Yay, Meryl.
Yay, Meryl. So she went to a wedding in the South. Her sister's daughter was marrying a young man who comes from a Southern family. And she traveled down to, I think, North Carolina to go to his wedding. And at one of the pre-parties, not the wedding itself, but one of the pre-parties, she was wearing a white blouse, in spite of the fact that her sister told her she should not do that because people down south do not wear white until after Memorial Day. And this was before. So down south.
They don't wear white till after Memorial Day. Okay, gotcha.
Right. Sorry, Memorial Day to Labor Day. So she had already picked out her outfit. She didn't want to try and find something else. She didn't think it was that big a deal. So she wore a white blouse. And her sister was a little put off, but nobody else seemed to mind. So to me, that's etiquette and not manners. What do you think?
I tend to agree, but that brings up the whole thing about it's a societal thing or norm, but not to wear a guest, not to wear white to a wedding, not the pre-thing, but a wedding. And I think that intersects with manners and etiquette because the reason I would not do that is because it may bother the bride.
Because only the bride is supposed to be wearing white.
Right. And so it kind of feels honoring of the bride. Yes. So she should stand out.
Or he should stand out.
That feels like one of those intersection things, that it's both etiquette and manners. But the one you're describing, no, I think is more etiquette. I started thinking what I would have done maybe, and I had crazy ideas. Like I'd get a fabric marker and put dots on my shirt, or I'm just being silly. Or throw a scarf and say, what do you mean? Throw a scarf. But it seems like it was more etiquette. Like it's, she stuck to her own plan and why not? All the power to her.
Well, here's an interesting thing. I think that if those people at that party had, I don't know, maybe snubbed her, maybe said something to her, I think that would have been bad manners.
Absolutely. Because commenting on somebody's clothes in a way that's not complimentary, I think is bad manners.
Oh, you mean entirely? I mean, you would do that if you saw me and I don't know, would you? Would you say, well, why are you wearing that dress?
Oh my gosh, here we're going. This is a whole other zone. This friendship and clothing choices. No, I think if somebody asks me, like I have friends who call me up and check out a date outfit with me first or something, or just, if they ask me, then I tend to want to be dressier than the average person. And I say my bias is to dress up, and it's not wrong or right. It's just me. I love to dress up.
Yeah.
I would wear an evening gown every day if I could.
I know that. Like you would always have something.
So I don't want to impose my bias on somebody. So I'm very transparent about it. But, if somebody asks me, then I'll give an honest opinion, and that could be a critique. But if somebody comes to my house and they don't ask me, I'm not going to make a comment about their clothing.
I don't tend to notice people's clothing that much.
You don't see this bird in my head right now?
No, I did definitely see the bird in your hair.
But that's so they know that I'm wearing a shiny sequin bird in my hair just for fun.
Clothing.
Right. Okay.
I don't know what that is, but it's not clothing.
It's my Rodolfo. Really? Come on. That's my check-in. It's my Rodolfo. All right. Let's go on with this. So we want to talk about places and events and what the manners are, or what we think, or stories we have about manners in those places.
Okay, so can I suggest, or you have a list you're ready with?
No, go ahead. Suggest away.
Okay, so restaurant.
Yes, restaurant. The first thing that comes in my brain is to be nice to your wait staff.
Nice to your wait staff. Polite and...
Patient. Like,
and grateful.
Doesn't mean it doesn't. Grateful, appreciative. That's the first thing that comes in my mind. The second thing that comes into my mind is to not put your cell phone on the table or your handbag. But see, to me, now people can argue etiquette versus manners. Well, you know what? It's really beyond that, because cell phones have a lot of germs. So it's practical to not put it on the table.
Well, what if somebody came into the restaurant and unwrapped their scarf and put that on the table?
I'm not a fan of stuff going on the table, but it's not the same. It's not the same. As long as it wasn't blocking the other person's stuff, as long as it wasn't intruding on the other person's stuff. But I think with the cell phone, it has two reasons. Hopefully the person won't be on the phone while you're dining. And that, I think, is manners.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's good manners.
Just manners and cell phones is a whole topic itself. Manners in regard to cell phones and media in general is almost a separate category. But see, as far as
what do you think about restaurants?
I can remember when I was younger and had small children, and on the rare occasion that I would get to go out with my friends, other moms, women. And one of the things that we did was everybody put their phone on the table. Because, of course, everybody is nervous. You have small kids at home, the babysitter's going to call, your husband's going to call, whatever. And the thing is, if your phone rang and you thought it was an emergency, then, of course, you could pick it up and talk on the phone. But if you reach for your phone to make a call, then you pay for the meal.
I love that.
For everybody.
I love that. And plus, I have to confess, me too. In that stage of my life, the cell phone went on the table. The cell phone, even with young teenagers, the cell phone went on the table. Maybe especially with young teenagers.
I agree. True.
So much is situational. So much is, but I think, I would then say if it wasn't a table of young mothers, then I would say to the person, I need to keep the phone out because the babysitter's with the kids.
Right.
Yeah. But I agree with you completely, but that's so cool that the first person who grabbed it to make a call, I love that.
Yeah. Nobody ever did that. I can't remember anybody ever actually doing it.
What else about restaurants before we move to the next place?
Yeah. I wanted to say that I told my kids at one point when we were eating out, I said, anybody who comes to your table to do anything for you while you're dining out, you say thank you. Anybody, 100% of the time. Like that's how strongly I feel about it.
Oh, that's great. No, I feel that way so much. And yeah, I just feel so much about that, about showing appreciation, and down to put your money where your mouth is and give a big tip. I'm sorry that that's important. I think that's also important. Yeah.
It's such enormously hard work.
Yes.
I mean, I did it myself for about a year and a half, and that was
I'm going into their place, their home. It feels like that to me. It may not be their home, but it's their place. I'm entering someone else's place. Immediately, I want to show gratitude. Then they're serving me wonderful food, dealing with busyness. So much appreciation. Yeah.
And then there's
Okay.
like,
So is
what
that
about
good?
there are manners that aren't about the wait staff, just table manners. So put your
Again,
napkin in your lap.
right, which is that etiquette. I mean, in some way, again, like it's good to keep the table clear. So in that way, and also it's useful that it's supposed to cover your laps for spills. And I mean, it has a useful function. Yeah, I agree. Also, not being too loud in a restaurant.
Oh,
What
so
do you think?
important.
Not being too loud.
So important.
I think that's so important. Um, all right. I could go on and on about restaurants, but I think we should switch to another place or event.
Okay,
You
good. What's
ready?
next? Yes.
Okay. Let's specifically talk about airplanes. Being on an airplane.
Oh, see, I
Being
feel
on an airplane.
intensely aware when I'm on an airplane of minimizing the amount of space I take, just because I feel
Oh,
like there's a limited amount of space to share.
mm-hmm. I feel as long as I'm not elbowing somebody or putting my bags near them, that that I can just be as comfortable as I need to be. Um, I don't feel I need to shrink. I don't. Yeah, I don't feel. I avoid that feeling. I do not need to shrink.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just not my thing. But I think being a conscious of the armrest,
Hmm.
between and not putting, I tend to have stuff with me. I tend to put extra stuff, and so sometimes it overspills, and I'll really apologize, or I'll try to really tuck it so I don't bother the other person. But I also think there's manners involved with how much you talk or don't talk. Like, can you pick up the social cues about whether the other person wants to rest or talk?
And how do you respond if they're trying to talk to you and you don't want to?
Yes, I think to at least show interest in them as a person, and then maybe I would be clear and just say, "Oh, I need to do some work, or I need to rest or sleep, or I need to." But first, I would respond to the person.
Well, I think that brings up another point about manners, which is to a certain extent, you have to be prepared to show good manners. So, like what you
Mm-hmm.
just said is so great. Like, be ready if somebody tries to talk to you to be able to say, "Oh, just excuse me, please. I need to." Like, that is such good manners.
Right. After
Because, like,
exchanging some conversation, because I always, you never know, you may wind up in a lot of turbulence. You may want to hang on to that person.
right?
Plus, I've had
Yes.
wonderful conversations on planes. I've bonded with people on planes, so sometimes
Oh,
it's worth
yeah, yeah. I have it.
worth
I
giving
have
up my
also.
agenda.
I mean, I would
Hmm.
say in general, I prefer to just, play on my iPad or watch TV or whatever, if that's possible.
Hmm.
But yeah, I've had some good conversations.
Hmm. Yeah. So I think that's it. And then the whole thing about being considerate of if you're putting your seat back and your feet forward, just being you're right. You're what you said originally, being aware of your body parts. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's an interesting situation in which you need to do that, as well as negotiate other, maybe navigate other realities of your situation, is if you're in a middle or window seat and you need to get up to go to the bathroom.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
have waited because the person next to me is sleeping. But
Hmm.
I mean, if you need to use the bathroom, then how long would you be expected to wait?
Right. So many people say when they know they need to use the bathroom frequently, then they try to get an aisle seat. Not that we can always control such things,
Yeah, you
but they
can't always
try to get the
control
aisle
it.
seat. Right. But yeah, no, you can't. You can't be expected to wait if you really have to go. Then you just kind of have to wake the person, and that's not bad manners.
Well,
It's not
maybe
bad manners.
depending on how you do it. So yeah,
Well,
you
it's
need
depending
to.
on exactly. It's
Right,
depending on how gently you do it and not being
right.
abrupt. And yeah, so many things are dependent on how you do it. It's just that's so much of it. Having that gentle, considerate tone and being patient. Yeah, so I think that's true. All right. Well, I'm sure there's much more. There's stuff about eating and not eating, but we don't have to go into that because I want to
What,
switch
on an
gears
airplane?
here. On an airplane,
You mean
yeah.
how do you eat your bag of peanuts? Because that's about it.
I don't know what I mean. Maybe not eating too loudly if the person next to you is sleeping, or I don't know. Or not bringing, some people talk about not bringing real smelly food on the plane because you're in such
Oh,
close quarters.
oh, I've never thought of that. Right,
Yeah, that came up. It
right.
wasn't my thought. I heard somebody say that. I
Hmm.
forgot who it was. Okay, so I have a list here. So, if you're going, I love the whole thing about if you're going either hosting somebody or going to be a guest. Like we could talk about that together.
Yes, that's so
What,
interesting.
what's your first thought?
My first thought is that I think that this kind of occurs to me every single time I walk into somebody else's house. I start thinking about what their expectations are. I, I guess that means that as a host, I would think it's good manners to make that as clear as possible. Wouldn't you think?
Yes, and I think that's where people don't realize that, and they think they're overstepping. But so much better. One of the first things I think is if someone comes in with a lot of stuff, instead of just dropping it somewhere, to say to the host, where would you like me to put this? And then for the host to be clear. And that may seem like a really small thing, but sometimes it's not. It depends on how the host is about their home, and it depends on if there's dogs and cats and babies, and it depends on um, also how much stuff you have. So
Right,
so
right.
that's just like as an entry point. Um, but also being so. What's an example of how a host can be clear in general?
Oh, yeah, I've prepared this room for you to stay in. I hope it's good for you. And there's a place over here to put your things. And it's this is a thing that, in terms of manners, has changed with cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
Because then, if you need to communicate with that person, you can text them.
That's so funny. But then sometimes I
Yeah,
text
it's
my
fun.
husband in the same house. But
Oh
that's
yeah,
very
yeah,
funny.
we do that
But
all the time.
yeah, sometimes we do that. But okay, so I'm
But
thinking the
yeah,
other
you
thing
could say, yeah,
is what
we'll
about
be eating dinner at 6, and you know,
mhm.
looking forward to.
People know what to expect.
Yeah,
People know to know what to expect. Now, what about going in someone's refrigerator if you're spending the overnight?
no,
Like,
not
I would
unless
not
that
go in.
person specifically says, please, please make yourself comfortable. There's food and drink in the fridge. Make take whatever you need whenever. I think somebody has to say that. I don't think it can be assumed.
It has context though. So we've been friends. We don't want to even say the number, but we will say the number over 50 years. And
Yes.
when I come visit you, I I have another way of looking at it. It's not that I wouldn't go in your refrigerator. I would just say, "Hey Kathy, I need some milk for my coffee. Can I just go and get it myself?" I'd mention it. So I guess that
Yes.
means I wouldn't just go, yeah, even though I've been your
Right.
friend for 50 years.
But then I would say, oh my God, of course, take whatever you need. And then from then on, I think you should be comfortable to just open the fridge.
But it's so interesting. And some people, they just probably would feel comfortable once they maybe establish people who go to each other's houses a lot, they'll say, just go in the refrigerator when you need it. So it's communication. I think it's
Right.
communication more than anything. It's just communication. The other thing is, what do you bring? You feel like it's important to bring something? Does it depend on if you're going for 2 hours versus lunch versus overnight as the guest,
Well, that's interesting because it also depends on your relationship with that person, and how often you go to their house.
Mm-hmm.
Like I walk
Yes.
across the street to Meryl's house, several times a week. I don't bring her something every
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
If I go to your house, I might and I might not, and either
Yes.
would be fine. But if I go visit someone that I don't know as well, then I think it's important to bring a little food, flowers. Yeah, like a hostess gift.
I think it's also important whether you're going mealtime or not. And then you can also talk about it. Like if you're going lunchtime, I may say, would you want me to bring something or should I, sometimes some friends bring their own lunch and I make lunch, or, I'll bring my own lunch, or just, again, to me, it's all about communication. But if I don't know the person at all, I would just automatically bring something, just what you said. And as the host, I do I've learned this recently. Some people will just say they don't need anything no matter what. So the last couple of people who have come, I have automatically made some food, and I just simple, very simple. I have people who were coming to visit in my yard and we were just sitting. So I just, one person, I made a watermelon salad and I just took it out. I thought maybe she would be hungry. I didn't ask her. I just said, if you want this, I have this. And then another person, I put out something very simple, like nuts and fruit, and but I've decided that it's good just to have something, because sometimes people who are just staying a couple hours, they're hesitant to say what they want.
Yeah, I like that. I think, but is that good manners, or is that just being caring of other people? And like, that's not something that I feel is really necessary. Like, you could still have good manners and not do that. That's kind of like extra good manners, or extra, what do you know?
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. I think it kind of intersects with manners, but I see it's just about care. Maybe it's going the extra thing. I don't know. It's so weird. But when I do stuff like that and I put it on a pretty tray, and that's all me, it just makes me feel good. So I guess that part's not about manners, but it just makes me feel like I've set a special space for the guest. So I'll do a nice tray and a little something cute and a little food, and
right. But
it just feels like, okay, it's my welcome mat. Oh,
it's just for you.
That's what it is. It's but it's also my welcome mat. It's my welcome mat.
All right. So making people feel welcome. That's good manners, right?
Making people feel welcome. There's many ways. Sometimes it's not food. There could be many ways to do that. All right. So you come up with a place or an event now.
Oh, you didn't prepare me for this. I thought we were just working from your list. So can I don't know. I did think of other things, but now I can't. So go on.
I have tons. So being in the car with someone for a long distance ride.
This is something I would avoid because I don't really know the manners and the etiquette that well. I mean, in terms of being in the car for a long time with people that you don't know well. Like I could be, of course, I'm in the car with John all the time. That's fine. With you, I could be in the car for hours. That's fine. But I've been in situations like, for example, in my environmental group, it's not uncommon to say, hey, do you want to go to that rally in Albany? Carpool. 6 people who don't know each other are in the same car for 3 hours.
But that's what I'm wondering about the etiquette, because, who gets to sit in the front, who gets to sit in the back, how do you do the air conditioner, the heat? How do you do the windows open? How do you do, again, that's good not to have smelly food. You have to ask the driver, is it okay to eat in the car? How do you do the music? See, this is my mind. It goes all over the place with it.
But you're really talking about a longer trip, not 20 minutes.
Right. No, I'm talking about like a trip of 2 to 5 hours. Yeah. Something longer.
Yeah, that's hard. That's a lot of stuff to think about. That's why I try not to do it, which is not really, it's really not right either.
Well, I think the manners thing, it's just like, again, the manners thing is thinking of someone else. So I think the person who's most likely to get car sick gets to sit in the front with the driver.
Oh, yeah. No, I've been in that situation several times. Well, for one thing, my oldest son, Steven, gets car sick very quickly. So as far as I was concerned, he always sat in the front, because you wouldn't expect someone to have to be sick because you want to sit in the front seat. That doesn't make any sense. But then if you're the person who gets car sick, you have to have a polite, mannerly way of saying, I really get car sick if I sit in the back. Is it okay if I sit in the front?
Right, right. Again, it's all about how you do it. But and also I think with the driver, instead of like putting just whatever music they want on, asking do you guys want music? What kind of music? Just I think again it's about that communication and thinking of I can't just go on automatic pilot, so to speak, and just blare the music.
Yeah, but some people might think that that is the prerogative of the driver because the driver is really doing a lot of work while everyone else is able to just sit and be a passenger. I mean, some people think that that person should pick the music.
Oh, it's so funny. I have to segue here. I was at poker the other night. I was at poker and they had Alexa. What is it? Alexis, whatever that device is.
But
they just said do 70s rock, and the music we're there to play poker and talk and be together. Women I've known decades, and so that's the important part. Women I've known decades. I've been to this person's house probably 100 times or more. So when the music was fine and we were doing it, listening to it, but then a song came up that was really jarring to me, and it interfered with my focus on the poker. So I finally just said, I'm sorry, but I don't even know. I'm sorry, but that particular song, I've liked the music so much. I said something positive. I like the music so much, but now this song I'm finding very jarring in terms of focusing on what we're doing, the poker. And so they just canceled the song and went on. Now, I don't know. Some people would think I was rude to do that.
But you are there to play the game.
But what?
You are there to play the game.
Yes, that was the agreed thing, that we're there to play a game. That's what I thought.
Right. So in that case,
I think just hanging out.
Like, I don't know, maybe it would be bad manners if you said, oh my God, I so hate that song. Please take that song off because I hate it so much. It's different than, I'm trying to concentrate on what we're doing. Also, it's a very different situation when you can just say, Alexis, play the next song. Than if somebody has to get up and turn the record over or.
That's so funny. That's so true. Right. Oh my gosh. That's so true. That changed up. Yes.
Yeah, because you're not asking for much, really.
No, I'm not asking for much. And it was really great because it was sincere that I had liked all the other music. It was only this one song. So it wasn't like I was making some sideways comment about it was only that one song. So
yeah, I mean, but do you think somebody should have said beforehand, is it okay if we do a whole 70s thing?
No, I think that's understood that with this group that they like that music, and the host was being shout out to Pat. The host was being considerate in picking music that was well liked by the group,
because
we have a history of being together,
right?
Because she knew the group, and
also she knows how old everybody there is,
right? So, and I had wanted to play before we all started. I had wanted to play a John Batiste song, so on my phone I played a John Batiste song. So people are free to add. This was before we were playing cards. The people are free to add what they want to, the situation. There's a lot of it's very intimate group. So no, I think that was all fine. And then they do ask about the volume. The lovely host, she did ask about, the volume to make sure it wasn't too loud or too soft. And I think that was the important part, the volume. It's so detailed. What I'm getting from this is this whole thing with manners and being considerate. It's so detailed.
It's so detailed, but to a certain extent also mostly automatic.
Yes, mostly automatic, except for
especially like later in life, like you've negotiated so many different situations already. You've already thought about it. It does take thought, though.
Let me dissect that a minute, though. Mostly automatic, except for when one is feeling ill or feeling preoccupied with something, and then we can lose our way with it. I see that in myself and others. So automatic in average or the best of circumstances, automatic, but not always.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, again, a whole other branch off of this topic is teaching manners. When you have kids, you kind of have to examine, your own manners, and then think about the way you want them to behave, and that you want them to have manners. So you know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. No, that's something I paused because I was thinking about it. Yes, I think some of it's done through modeling. And then some of it, I don't think, I definitely modeled, but I don't think I talked about gratitude a lot, but I don't think I dissected some of these things enough for my kids. So that's a whole other podcast. That's like a whole other thing. So I know we need to wrap up, but it's hard because there's so many things to cover. Let's just say a couple of quick, let me think of another one. You know what? Let's go back to the husbands. So I'm still thinking, I still am thinking, so John, so your husband is basically saying that it shouldn't have to be overly thought about in the intimacy of a marriage.
I guess so. Yeah. Again, it's not as if he has bad manners with me in general. I mean, he can sometimes, but we do say please and thank you.
Right.
If he goes on a trip, when he comes home, I make sure that, I'm there to greet him when he comes in. I think that's good manners.
Yes. Oh, so I think, I get what he's saying. That in a long-term, especially a long-term marriage, one shouldn't have to overly think about such things.
Yeah, right. Maybe not overly.
But it corresponds with what you're saying, which is that especially as we're older, it becomes so natural to just be considerate. And I think that's what now this is great, getting to something. Thank you, John. Thank him. I think that for me, the most important thing is to be considerate of my husband as I am of my friends, or even more considerate. I think that it's about consideration.
Right.
Instead of using the word manners.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, you do have to get along with each other for many hours, many days at a time, for a whole lifetime. So.
All right. So we've gone on a little longer than usual, and there's, I'm grateful for the time to talk about it, but I also have something to say about future podcasts. We're thinking of doing one about silence, right?
Yeah, that was one of the topics we talked about. Silence.
So it would be great if people could, before we do that podcast, it's not the next one, before we do the podcast, if folks could send us at our email. I'm not positive.
Stone Sisters Podcast at gmail.com.
Stone Sisters Podcast
all one word.
gmail.com. All one word.
Yes.
So if folks could email us what they have had in terms of experiences with silence. Please give us permission in your email if it's okay to share, and because we can also share anonymously, or we could use your name, or we could just use your first name. And then it's also interesting just to hear your thoughts, even if we don't get to share them.
Sure, of course. Yeah, great.
We love that. We love that.
So great. Okay.
Now let's talk about something else. We'd love to hear from you, our listeners, with any questions, any thoughts, responses, and comments, and also any ideas you might have for future episodes.
Yes, and you can reach us at stonesisterspodcast@gmail.com. That's Stone Sisters Podcast, all one word, @gmail.com. And we'd really love to hear from you.